Okay, so I've got a magnetic lap here. It's just a lap, sintered lap, 600, bit of a worn out 600, that's attached to some magnetic material. I find these are fantastic because you don't need to bother screwing them down. They're very, very solidly stuck there. So you could have a spacer lap with some magnetic material glued to it, and then you could just interchange your various centered grinding laps. Although the 600 one is the only one I have at the moment, and I do most of my work on the 600, unless it's a really big sapphire. Okay, so we start our water going. I'm just going to preform up this blue sapphire that we just talked about, 13.2 carat. Oh, wrong one, sorry, 13.2 carat. We want the water going at about 1 drop a second, thereabouts. And I'm just going to have a look for any little flaws. There's that little hole there that I really need to get out so that I can look at the kind of depth that we have to work with. And these faces on this crystal are sloping this way, so it looks like we would have a pavilion here because we've already got these angles. Okay, but I'm just going to clean it up a bit so we can get a better look at it. I don't usually do a lot of preforming regarding the shape, trying to get the shape of the stone perfect before dopping, but I do like to just get the flaws out so that we can really see what we've got to work with. You don't want to be surprised by a flaw that pops up halfway through or near the end of cutting a stone, although that does happen anyway. You could use a much coarser lap for this. I could, if it's taking too long, I would do that. I really want to still get rid of this little hole in this stone. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look. Let's keep checking. You want to be grinding, checking all the time to see how you're going. Seeing where the flaws are travelling, which way, which direction. Keeping in mind what sort of shapes are options for you to cut. So that if you do take a flaw out, you take it out on the correct angle. So keeping in mind that if you take off maybe a millimetre of material in the wrong angle, in the wrong direction, then you could be losing a carat of finished stone. So it's really important to think about what sort of shape the stone is suggesting and what sort of design you're going for. It doesn't matter too much with this one because we are very much limited by depth. But if you had, say, a large valuable stone like that 36 carat green that I have to do, which I haven't started on yet, but I will get to it, hopefully this week, then you need to be really careful about assessing the stone and what sort of design you are going to do. Now this looks like it's going to be a fairly clean blue, but there is still that bit of a divot in the middle. I'm pressing quite hard on this lap. You could be using a 180 lap to get rid of this, or a 360, but there we go. We've actually got a clean surface there for dopping. And I can see that I'm still working out my videos. Okay, so I will just do a little bit more preforming so that we have a rough pavilion shape ready to dop. Now, I said I don't do a lot of preforming. So I'm quite happy to dop that up as is. All right, we have some rough angles up onto a pavilion. We have a flat where we're going to dop. We're going to be doing a round. I've roughly got that design right. There's no real flaws. Oh, hang on. I can't work out how to move this backwards and forwards from camera angles. Okay, so this is my quick and easy way to dop. It's not the way I was taught. I was taught with the little burner and little jam tin and all that sort of thing. I'll turn the water off. Oh, I need to go and find my method. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back with Metho. Now, sometimes I like to just note down what the preform weight is, or what the rough preform weight is. Okay, so we've got a rough preform weight there of 10.15. 10.15. It can give me an indication of, you know, if that stone is going to meet the requirement or not. Like for this one, I have a particular customer who wants like a 3 or 4 carat dark blue sapphire, so it's nice for me to know if it's not going to, or someone might want a 6 mil sapphire or 7 mil sapphire, 5 mil, so you can always dop it up and start cutting it, and if it's not going to meet that, then you can just stop and put it aside and try another one. So it's nice to just keep an idea of how your stone's progressing and what sort of size, shape and parameters that we're going to be able to achieve. Dopping wax is a bit of an issue. I've used lots of dopping wax over the years. I like to use a high temperature wax. This is all that I have of the last stick I bought from Gem Cuts of this wax. So I'm going to try to source some, or I'll get some locally from Ruby Vale Cut and Slice from Max. Now, this is my way of dopping, and it'll only work if you have a machine where the quill will sit vertically. But it's quite quick and simple, and I like it. Okay, I don't know if you can see me. There we go. Okay, I'll just heat up. That's not great. Okay. Now, as you can see, there's already some wax on this dop stick. That's fine. It's not burnt, so it doesn't really matter. It's going to be fine. It's just going to add to the little bit. So I'm just using a simple Bic lighter to heat up some wax until it's, well, melting. You want to be careful you don't drop it on yourself because it can burn. I'm going to use my dop stick to pick up some of the melted wax. Okay. Until we get, whoop, left half of that behind. Okay. So I've got some wax there now. I'm just going to touch it onto a flat surface so that we have a flat on the dop stick where we're going to put our stone. So I will just fix that into my quill. I always dop with wax, never with glue, because you can move it. If you don't exactly center the stone, then you can simply reheat the wax and move it once, to one side or the other. With glue, you can't do that. And that might be okay for some larger semi-precious material, but if you're cutting a large and valuable, or small and valuable piece of material like a sapphire, maybe an orange sapphire or something very valuable, then you can't lose a single 1/10 of a millimetre if you don't have to. Now, that's not to say that you always cut it for the biggest stone. You always cut for the best and brightest stone, which hopefully, if everything works out, is the biggest. So I'm just heating everything now. I'm heating the wax, the stone, the dop stick. It's all getting heated and coming together. I'm turning it around. I'm pressing it down to make sure it's flat on the dop, to make sure that that facet or that ground surface that I cut, I'll sort of play with the wax a bit and make sure it's all. And you can tell when the wax is, when everything's hot enough and when everything's working, because it kind of seems to meld together. The wax seems to melt onto the stone and melt onto the dop. And it's really just a matter of experience in learning when everything's hot enough. Okay, now I'm roughly centering it just by eye, making sure finally that I do press down and make sure it is completely flat with the dop. Okay, then we just give that a couple of seconds to give that a few seconds to cool down a bit. And I will test it. Spray it with a bit of metho. You can dip it in water, anything you like if you're, you want to sort of speed it up a little bit. But that feels to me. And we give it the test, which is 2 fingers. Okay, and we pull it in a direction. Don't try to twist it off because it might come off. But that is solid as, right? So we are ready to start cutting. And I will start another video now. That is my dopping method. As I start cutting, if I find that it's missing on one side and too big on the other side, all I need to do simply is reheat the wax, the stone, reheat it all a little bit. And I'll show you exactly what we do. Reheat it and we can move it over that way. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a divot or a little bit of a hole, a chip in one side, so you want to be able to move it over towards that side so that you don't just end up rounding it and end up with a cylinder, so that we're making sure we get the best recovery from having a centered stone. Okay, now you can see what I'm doing there just by simply heating it and being able to move it over. And always pressing directly down when we're finished to make sure it's nice and flat. Okay, I'll see you soon. Thank you.